Hey everybody, welcome back to Bleeding Cool's weekly recap of The Walking Dead Season 8. My name is Ray Fluck, television beat writer. We're going to be taking a look at this season's 11th episode, Dead or Alive or. And trust me, you have no idea how many times I've attempted to get the title of tonight's episode right. I don't know why. But we're going to be taking a look at it, and I want to start off by saying this episode was slow. I'm going to be honest, the first episode since we've come back from the mid-season break, I thought was a necessary evil because we kind of had to shuffle Carl off as mortal coil. I thought last week's episode was just depressingly on point. I just thought it hit on all cylinders. This week, I have to be honest with you, my thing with The Walking Dead is, and they did this during the Governor season with the prison, is if you're going to give me several episodes that kind of overlap time-wise but are showing me what's going on with other characters, you need to make each of those stories interesting and intriguing. And I felt during the Governor storyline, that's what we got. You know, we'd get 4 episodes from 4 different perspectives, but it all meant something. It all tied in. Tonight's episode, not that it wasn't meaningful, it just, I don't feel like it really added anything new. Now, my opinion on this episode might change as we see the rest of the season goes on, but again, it seemed kind of like we could have chopped this up and spread it about some other episodes. So again, I hope I'm wrong down the road, but for now, I'd say mediocre at best. But I want to touch upon some of the storylines, and I have my handy dandy notes here because I want to make sure we get this out to you as soon as possible. One of our main storylines had to do with Daryl, Rosita, Tara, and Dwight taking that group of survivors from the underground area to the Hilltop, and essentially having to choose to go through a swamp area. It's a swamp area that Dwight recommending primarily because Negan didn't want the Saviors to go anywhere near it. The swampland was way too dangerous with walkers to ever be a problem or issue. So, of course, that tends to be the best route to go. I mean, you've got Daryl, and you've got Tara, and you've got Sadiq, and you've got people who are really good at clearing out prime walker space. It doesn't take long for them to clear the areas out, though there are some sketchy things in there. The overlying storyline in that arc is, of course, the issues with Dwight, and specifically the issues that Daryl and Tara have. Tara, of course, going the route of just wanting to kill off Dwight, and we see a couple of instances where, surprisingly, she actually takes a shot at him. And she then sees an instance where Dwight steps up and pretends to be with the Saviors to lead the Saviors away from them so they can continue going through the swamp. And Tara sees the error of her ways, and she tells Daryl, and then Daryl flips out because, you know, now all of a sudden Tara's defending Dwight to Daryl, and Daryl wants Dwight back because he doesn't trust him. I just wasn't really buying it a lot. I really wasn't, because I think Tara's smarter than that. And I think even with the emotion of her loss, I think she understands that Dwight's a valuable commodity, at least until this is all over. So I didn't feel like I got a lot of that. However, having said that, Rosita, I would like to see more, because I think in her quiet moments, I think she has a lot to offer the episode. And Austin Emilio, Dwight, I think he just did a stellar job this episode. I keep liking his performances more and more, the subtleties and nuances, the way he just was able to slide back in to being a savior to get them away from Daryl and the rest of the group, I just thought was really impressive. Second storyline had to do some more subtle one with Maggie in the Hilltop, and the idea of her constant battle between how savage should she be to her savior prisoners, or how human should she be. And we see the tug of war, where she at one point wants to cut rations off from them, and on the other, towards the end, she starts letting them out in pairs to work and also get medical attention and also get something to eat using them. I'm hoping this doesn't come back to kind of bite her in the end. But I can see the point. It's Maggie's trying to walk that thin line between what Carl really wants and where Rick and Negan are at this point. So I think she's doing a good job of it. Again, I just hope this doesn't become an issue in another episode or 2 down the road. We have Dr. Carson and Gabriel. This one seemed, I'm going to be honest with you, to be painfully heavy-handed. We had another instances with Gabriel. Gabriel's losing his vision because of the flu that he got. And I'm glad they touch upon this. Sorry. Nose itch. I'm glad they touch upon this, because with all the time that they go around wearing zombie guts to kind of make it through certain areas and stuff like that, eventually there's going to be some aspect of it that's going to impact him. And it's clear that Gabriel has contracted something from the time that he was rocking guts with Negan. So we saw that, and we saw the damage it was doing to his vision, but we saw these instances of Gabriel's faith and things that happened. They found an outpost, and then he knocked over, the outpost happened to have antibiotics that he could use, and then he knocked over a jar that had keys and a map and everything like that, and he's teaching Carson faith, and then Carson gets faith, and then Carson makes an incredibly stupid move. Faith does not equal, I don't have to be smart, by the way, and that's the other thing I didn't get. The idea of Carson starting to buy into Gabriel to the point where he's going to make a go for a savior gun, Carson not exactly coming across like Rambo in any way, shape, or form. So his move to do that, I thought, was just completely out of character. And it just was one of those, oh, Gabriel's going to have to suffer again to see how strong his faith is. You know, and Gabriel ends up finding himself getting carted over to Eugene, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Getting carted over to Eugene, questioning his faith, questioning his purpose. I'm just at the point right now where it's like, do something long-term meaningful with Gabriel or just kind of knock him off, because I'm really starting to like the character, but it just seems to be this kind of one-trick pony thing that we keep doing with him. We also then have Negan and Eugene, and for those of you who don't know, Negan and Eugene, they're running out of ammo, and they're running out of good ammunition, and they're running out of good weapons, so Negan basically is giving Eugene his own outpost, his own crew, as Eugene not so subtly asks, his own stash of wine and everything else to start building up ammunition. Big time. And we see that Eugene is doing that and doing that well, while not happy about it, starting to understand what his place is. Now, where it gets interesting is that Eugene brings up to Negan this idea of, what's the best way to put it? I guess psychological warfare by using catapults to essentially catapult Walker Guts over to Rick and the rest of the coalition to kind of psych them out, possibly get some people sick, things like that. Of course, Eugene, typical Eugene fashion, even when he's stumbling, bumbling, and being an idiot, he ends up coming up with a diamond that Negan sees. So Negan, and those of you who are familiar with the comic book will know where this is going, then Negan decides, hey, here's a crazy thought. Let's start coating our weapons with zombie guts and blood and everything else. So even if it's just a scratch, you join the club, as he likes to say to it. You're either alive, dead, or some weird, awkward thing in between. So that's essentially where we're going to be moving forward. Now, there is one thing I do want to touch upon, because I do think it was a nice part of the episode. It was the moment where we see Daryl and the crew finally making their way to Hilltop. And it is sad and it is heartbreaking, because we see in quiet, slow-motion vignette when Enid, Maggie, and Carol find out what happened to Carl and the heartbreak. Enid, just her performance was just fantastic in the soft moments that she was there. That was one of the highlights of the episode. And there was also after that a very sweet and touching scene between Morgan, Henry, and Carol, where Carol was just really explaining to Henry, like, look, Carl didn't die in some big battle. He didn't die, killing somebody. He died saving somebody. Just a person who needed help in the middle of all this madness. He offered himself up to make sure that that person was protected. So I thought that was a very sweet scene. But overall, I gotta say, if I'm gonna do a Cusack scale, I'm gonna give it a 5. I'm gonna put it right in the middle. Honestly, if there are things that happen in the episodes that come up to kind of build from it, that number probably gets knocked down a little bit. I feel like there may be seeds that have been planted here that are going to be built upon. I'm just not sure. I'm going to be completely honest with you. So I'm slightly concerned. But again, this mid-season thing that we're running so far, we've had 3 episodes. One which was good, little stretched out and everything else. Last week's episode, which was one of the better episodes that has come along in quite some time on all levels. Tonight's episode, again, it just felt like the part 1 of something, and I don't know if that part 2 is next week or it's going to be spread out. But again, decent enough. Not something I would necessarily run to my DVR to watch again, but curious to see where it follows up. It looks like we're going to be getting a lot more action next week, especially with Rick and Michonne making their way to the Hilltop. So thank you guys for joining me. We're going to have this stuff up very, very quickly, and glad you guys are always joining me for these recaps or these revaps, reviews, whatever we want to call them. So I hope you guys join me next Sunday. Also, we're going to have some Walking Dead stuff coming up this week too. And don't forget, also on Thursdays, we continue doing the AP Bio from the NBC sitcom starring It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia's Glenn Howerton, and from Sci-Fi, Happy's Patton Oswalt. So I hope you can join me for that too. But thank you guys. Once again, my name is Ray Flick, television beat writer for the Walking Dead recap. Hope you guys enjoy, and see you on the website. Take care.